For this last section of your portrait, we're going to focus on finishing up the shadows and then starting to bring more details in, working on using a white pencil for the highlights. So I'm going to go ahead and play this time lapse here, which is sped up a lot because there was a lot of time put into the end of shading here. So you should definitely be taking your time as you're filling in the remaining areas of your portraits. But remember again to just start with the light shadows first and slowly build up from there. So I'm starting to fill in more of the shadows in this part of the portrait. And I'm going over the darker areas slowly to continue to darken those up and really create a nice transition between the darkest shadows and the medium tones. You can use either a blending stump or your finger as you're working and slowly blend out those shadows as well so that you can continue to build up and darken the areas as you're filling in your portraits. Again, with the hair, don't focus on the details yet, still focus on chunking the shadows and highlights. So go over the areas that are the darkest in the hair and just look at the simple shapes that those make. Same with even detailed features such as the lips and eyes. You're still looking at just the simple shapes of the shadows. And every once in a while, flip your picture and your drawing upside down so that you can look at it from a different perspective. This will help you to just quickly pick out any mistakes or any issues that you need to fix as you're working. Once you have a good basis of the shadows all laid out, I would then go in with your white charcoal and start looking for the lightest highlights first and just lightly fill in those details. So I started in the eyes where there's those bright highlights, and then maybe look at the bridge of the nose where there's going to be some highlights as well. So these are all areas that are closest to the viewer, so areas on the face that stand out the furthest. So that's usually going to be on the forehead, the nose, and then the top part of the lip and the middle of the bottom lip. And then for the hair, same thing. You're not doing too much detail yet, but just slowly building in the highlights. And you'll notice I'm going back and forth with the black charcoal and the white charcoal to just continue developing those shadows and really refining the areas of midtones as well. So try your best to blend highlights and shadows together to still get those medium values, which are definitely important to have, just those areas of smooth transition. If you are doing hatching or cross-hatching for your style here, remember to follow the form of the face. And I would still follow the form of the face if you're using blending. So try to shade in the direction that that face curves, or the area that has the part of the face that sticks out the furthest is going to be where the line continues to come out and then go back in. So just continue to build the layers. Look at the background. Do you have a dark background that you can fill in with a shadow to help enforce the contrast? And then again, just keep flipping that paper upside down. Start to refine the details only when you're sure that you have everything laid out as accurate as possible and you have the base highlights and shadows laid out. Then I would go in, start adding a little bit of texture for the eyebrows, the eyelashes, some of the hair you can go over with some lines to add a little bit of detail with the hair, and just really take your time again going back and forth. So I'm continuing to work on blending areas, pushing shadows a little bit darker, so you should have a lot of contrast. You should have a lot of areas that are completely white, a lot of areas that are completely filled in black, and then a good amount of areas in the medium tone as well. So you should have all three of those values, and then a good amount of blended areas of the in-between medium values. But keep working on continuing to add more highlights as you go. You'll start to notice more areas that are light that you can continue to work on adding to. It helps as well if you squint your eyes and look quickly between your reference picture and then the actual drawing, and that will help to just pick out the blocks of value. So when you squint your eyes, you can see the major areas that should be the darkest and the major areas that should be the lightest. And when you squint your eyes and look at your portrait, it should look the same, where you have those areas that are the light and darks. Look at too the area of the hair on the outside, where the light might be hitting, so you can get some of those detail hairs that might come off of the face. And that really helps to create with the realistic feel of your portraits too. But take your time, really blend, focus on building your layers. It does take a good amount of time to really get all of that detail included. If you look at the top lip, there should be a highlight right around the outside rim of the top lip. There should be a dark highlight or really light highlight on the chin where it stands out. And a lot of contrast too where that part of the chin and the shadow meet. So really look at the shape there. Try not to outline the chin and the neck, but have a highlight and shadow kind of separate the area out and create the outline for you. So you can see I'm just really spending a lot of time doing those small circles to get a nice blend in this highlight around the eye. The more contrast that you have, the more realistic these portraits will look, the more that everything is going to come together and really pop and stand out in your portraits. And something else that helps too that you might want to consider is take a picture on your phone of your portrait, and that way it flips your image and that gives you a new perspective as well, similar to flipping your portrait upside down. It reverses it. You could also hold it up to a mirror and that might help you see it from a different angle. But if there's an area that doesn't look right, maybe try to covering up the nose and see if that helps. And if there's some issue with the nose that you need to fix, double check your measurements. You can measure your eyes compared to the width of your nose if something looks different there off, and that might help. Really spend a good amount of time blending. Make sure those medium values are faded nicely in between the highlights. Try to get some of that texture on your top layer though. So once you're going back in with the details, once all of your highlights and shadows are blended the best that they can, look at all of the details and texture with the hair, the eyebrow, the eyelashes, and just make sure you're really bringing in lots of small specific details that can help add to the overall realistic feel of your portraits. But again, take your time, look for areas of highlights, shadows, and just continue to slowly build those layers and block them in.